It's gonna go.
What's up, Diet Busters? How are you? We always laugh at the countdown. It's like it pauses at one. So, welcome to the weekly live show. If this is your first time here, we're so happy to have you. If you have been at lots of these, we're also super happy to have you. So, my name is Courtney Miracle.
I am Brandon Miracle.
We are married, and you will see this in our lives. But we just want to welcome you guys here. So, our goal is really to bust the myths of dieting, to get you off of dieting, to get you into fueling your body, and really just truly help you become the happiest, healthiest version of yourself. So we're so happy that you're here. So do us a favor, if you're watching live, drop a hashtag live. If you catch the replay, hashtag replay. We want to make these fun and interactive, and it's way more fun to talk to you guys and have you respond than to be talking heads. At least we can talk to each other, but the goal of this is really to answer your questions, to pour into you, hi Nicole, and really support you in your health journey wherever you're at. So we're going to change up the strategy or the layout a little bit. So we're going to have targeted talks every week instead of just sort of general questions. And we're going to make them a little bit shorter. We love to teach. We really love to teach. Brandon really loves to teach, and he's such a science guy and knows so many things. But we think that possibly you guys aren't getting through all of it because they have been longer. So 30 minutes or less. Hi, Denise. We're going to talk to you guys all about hormones, okay? So just before we dive into that, we want to share, just finished up with our first 8-week group. So we do run a program. It's the 8-week shifters group. And we just, finished up with one of those groups, and we've had such amazing feedback. And I just want to share one story that's kind of related to hormones, but just, really our goal, you guys, is to take things that seem complicated, make them simple, and give you a system to walk through these things so you can really start to understand your body and understand yourself. So, April shared, and I shouldn't paraphrase, but you want to paraphrase what she said?
Yeah, so essentially April was one of our shifters who just finished up the 8-week program. And when she started, she had notable thyroid issues. Her thyroid levels were kind of fluctuating, and she wasn't seeing, essentially, she was having metabolic issues and all the down regulation of thyroid function. And so she commented that when we were posted that we were going to be doing this talk today, that she said over the 8-week course, she saw an improvement in her thyroid stimulating hormone. So usually that means improved metabolic function. That usually means a lot of other cognition functions. There's a lot of other metabolic functions that are going to be improved by seeing essentially that hormone increased. In addition, and we'll go through essentially the contributing factors of things that will affect that. But I mean, just in 8 weeks, this is somebody who was dealing with something that, oftentimes we have so many clients walk through our door of like, I'm doing all the things that I'm quote unquote supposed to be doing, right? I'm monitoring my nutrition. I'm counting this. I'm measuring that. I'm doing all these kind of things, but I can't seem to get the results, right? And so honestly, the goal of this conversation, and really the whole basis of what our 8-week shift program is to give you the tools and basically the structure so you can utilize these processes to get your body functioning the way it's designed to do, all right? To eliminate the faction or the thought process of restrictive dieting, over obsessively counting, doing all the things, running on the hamster wheel of punishment, all the other things that we see so many of our clients walk through the door, and be able to show you the simplistic way to do this so you can get all the benefits you want and then some in half the time.
Yeah, and I think there's so much noise, right, about calorie counting and calories burned and calorie, right? If you've heard my story about calories, I lived it, I get it. But when you really dive deeper, which is what we want to do today with hormones, so Brandon's going to share about 3 hormones today, but it's really understanding that there's more to your system, that when you get that working in your favor, you don't need to worry so much about, yes, you got to pay attention to what you're eating, but the calories are not the golden nugget. So the thing that there's so many people right now, I feel like that we have all this energy of trying to make shifts and trying to become better version of ourselves, but it's slightly misdirected, and there's not a full understanding of the broad picture. And so that's where we ended up, and we end up frustrated and not getting results and all that kind of stuff. So let's dive right in. I'm going to let Brandon take the science and run with it for the next little bit. So tell us the 3 hormones we're going to talk about today, and then just go for it.
Well, so when we're talking about hormones, you guys, really there's over 50 plus hormones circulating in your system at any given time. And there's several that affect metabolic function all the time, and obviously we don't have time to go into each and every one of those, right? But it's first step understanding when we're talking about hormones, what are we even talking about, right? And so hormones, think of hormones essentially, those are the emails, the text messages, the DMs, the Instagram messages, the tweets, the voice notes, whatever it is that people send messages nowadays on, that's what's going on internally in your system. All right, so the reason why this is important, and when you understand how to utilize these things and how you essentially turn them on or turn off, or how they're affected by the things in which you do in every realm of your life, you can start to function from a more conscious place, right? And that it's kind of like, when you first start a job, right? When you first start a job, everything's coming at you a million miles an hour. You have no idea what's up, what's down, all these things, and you're trying to rely on Henry, who's been there for 20 years, to tell you, like, these are the procedures, these are the ways to go about doing it, right? But after 20 years, you go through the process and you're in Henry's shoes. All of a sudden, you can see the new person coming in the desk of like, okay, you showed up 5 minutes late. This is what's going to happen. You're going to feel this call. This is what's going to happen. And you can basically future cast what's going to happen, right? Same thing happens when you can understand of how to utilize your hormones and understand the function that's going to come out of essentially the effects of what you're doing to turn those things on or off. All right. So
if you didn't look at the underlying thing of that, you guys, it's empowering yourself. It's empowering yourself to understand how your body works and to get your body working for you and not against you.
Yes, because oftentimes, yet again, we get so inundated with calories, macros, all the things of like what's going in. But if the command center that controls what gets the information of what comes in, but the command center is in charge of what gets distributed and then what gets turned on, it's probably more important to understand the information at the command center, not just what is coming in. Okay, so
we just watched. What did we just watch? Top Gun, and all I can think is like requesting permission.
Or Buzz the Tower.
Sorry guys, it's been a long week. My brain is not all there. I should just sit over here and let you know.
They're making a new Top Gun too. Darn you, Tom Cruise. So anyway, so the first one on the you guys is insulin. Okay, obviously I think for a lot of people, insulin, we probably know about insulin in some shape or some form because of diabetes, insulin resistance, all those functions that are factors that come out of that, right? But it's also understanding, like, okay, we hear insulin and I think the automatic association, oh, it's a bad thing to have. We need insulin, right? Like, I think if there's a mistake we oftentimes make, you guys, is we make generalizations and we compartmentalize information. We do that as human beings across spectrums because it allows us to make things easy and recognizable, right? But when we compartmentalize something and think of something essentially as bad, even though it's obviously a built-in system within you for a reason, we can kind of shut the door on that and not allow the process to function optimally, okay? So insulin's job, all right, we'll try to make this as simplistic as possible, all right? So insulin is essentially secreted in your pancreas, and it gets elevated when you essentially eat usually sugary type of foods, right? Like protein still influences, fat influences a little bit, but the major contributing factor to essentially release and elevate insulin levels is sugar. So that could be in the form of starchy carbohydrates, that could be in the form of candy, that could be ice cream, that could be vegetables, that could be fruit, right? So all of those things are going to raise that just in different differential levels based off of what you eat, all right? Now, insulin's job is when you eat those things, it senses, I have sugar essentially in the blood. And so insulin gets released, and then all of a sudden it takes it, it basically takes the cells, it allows it to open up the door, right? Open up the door of the cell and allows for that energy that's floating around in your bloodstream to be sucked in and stored. Okay, so if there's any, like the big one we want to take out of that is insulin is a storage hormone. Its job is to take sugar out of your bloodstream and bring it inside the cell, right? When we're talking about sugars, glucose, and it's stored in the form of glycogen in your system. It was mainly in your muscle and is in your liver. Well, when those cups essentially get overflowed or overfilled, the energy still has to go somewhere. So if I'm still eating a high prevalence of carbohydrates, and usually what we see oftentimes is higher glycemic type of carbohydrates, is that cup doesn't have anywhere to go, and they still have that prevalence of insulin that needs to get those things out of my system. That's when it gets pulled into essentially the fat cell and stored as extra energy. Okay, so yet again, it's your body trying to work for you, all right? It's releasing that to try to pull it into the system, all right? Now, where this can go awry is when, so think of, yet again, so your hormones are the messengers that are communicating and talking, all right? Now, think of that in terms of, have you guys played telephone, right? Like, have you ever played telephone? Like, you get 6 people in a line, and then all of a sudden you tell them a message, and then it goes down the line, and then by the time it gets to the 6th person, it's like a completely different message.
It's nothing like when you started.
Right, and so the same thing can happen with our hormones, right? Like the message gets sent out, but you get Bob on the other end that has no idea. He speaks a completely foreign language. He's had a bad day. He didn't sleep very well. He's angry at his spouse, whatever it may be. And all of a sudden he misinterprets that and then sends that message incorrectly. Well, your body can do the same thing. It basically can get interrupted in the receptors that that are going to receive the message. Not to mention, it's kind of like an annoying, yet again, if you have that annoying person that you work with that constantly has to send the message, and DM you on everything, but after a while, like, you think their jokes are funny, but after a while, you all of a sudden, like, put their message in to go directly to the spam file. Well, same thing happens if we get over inundated with a lot of insulin in our system. And so what happens is that we essentially get insulin resistance, but with the kind of the domino effect of that is, well, if my body still has this prevalence of sugar floating around the system, somewhere else in your body has to take on those responsibilities, okay? If there's one, again, for those that have gone through the 8-week shift, you probably heard us say this over and over and over. Every system works and corresponds together. Every system communicates together, right? And so if one system fails, somewhere else in the system has to pick up the slack. And when it comes to that, that means your liver is usually having to take on the brunt of detoxifying the system, dealing with a lot of the things that are floating around in the system. That's sugars, that's fats, that's all those things. And scientists have shown that we can actually start to create non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. All right, so basically you look as if you're an alcoholic, even though you may not drink, but because you have prevalence of high sugar in your system, that's going to essentially create the same adaptation as drinking a lot of excess alcohol. Now, how this affects your metabolic function is your liver has a lot to do with your thyroid hormones. All right, now your thyroid is basically known as like the master regulator of your metabolism, right? Like for all you guys that are out there that are wanting to, what's the golden nugget where I can increase my metabolism? Well, yet again, if you might be doing everything quote unquote correctly, but if you're having a high incidence of sugars, unprocessed foods, a lot of stress, all those things, those are going to affect your liver. Well, if that affects your liver, that in turn is going to affect your thyroid. If that affects your thyroid, that in turn is going to downregulate your metabolism. So yet again, you can count all the calories you want, but if the cascading event is elevated here, it's going to downregulate over here, and it's going to decrease your metabolism no matter how much you slash your calories, like Crazy Eddie slashing prices trying to sell a car, right? So that essentially is insulin, okay? It's a storaging and it's a packaging hormone, okay? Now, the awesome side of this is, and this is what we teach heavily in the 8-week program, is, okay, now how can we utilize those things, right? Like insulin's pulling all this amazing energy into the system.
You need energy.
You need energy.
Clear. You need
yes.
energy.
Yes, this is pulling it in. This is the things that allows you to promote function, not only to keep you breathing and upright to watch us, but also to go train, to go play with your kids, go build muscle, do whatever that it is that you're trying to promote. We need that energy to do so. But if we have too much of a prevalence of storage, we don't get the results we want. So how do we open the door? And this is where the next hormone comes in.
Hi, I'm protein.
Yes, and this is where it comes from protein. All right.
I would like to knock on the door.
Yes, and so this is where it comes from the form of glucagon. Okay, it's also secreted in your pancreas. It does if you go for a long time frame without eating and your blood sugar kind of crashes. It gets released to elevate your blood's essentially your blood sugar, your blood glucose. But it also essentially if insulin pulls it in the cells, glucagon opens the door so that energy can be used and utilized, right? And so same thing goes, if I have all that storage going into my liver, I have all that storage going into my muscle tissue, and it doesn't have anywhere to go. And this is why, yet again, we not only teach what you're eating, but in what fashion are you eating it, right? And I'll go over a study that kind of indicates that, but this is where we be able to utilize and get you eating from a more conscious level. This isn't just baseline, it's just your calories. This is eating from a conscious level so you can take advantage of your system. So if I'm pulling it in, but if I couple that up with things that are going to open the door, now my metabolic system is rolling and it's functioning at an optimum level, all right? And so where we get glucagon, that's going to be primarily comes in the door with what Courtney just said, which is protein.
And what we know to be true from the last 8 weeks is most people don't get enough protein.
Nope.
So if you're having too much carbohydrates and too much insulin and not enough protein, what do you think is going to happen? Too much storage, not enough release. This is where we see people not getting the results they desire as far as fat loss and body recomposition. Okay.
Yep. And so essentially, you guys, is if we're trying to promote good cellular hormonal regulation, and yet again, if we're talking about proteins, yet again, the things in which we're talking about hormones of being transmitted, communicated based off your endocrine system and all the things that basically move those things and communicate, those are also built from proteins. All right. So if you're deficient in that, that's going to, yet again, you got Bob on the other end of the line that has no function. He's overslept. He's under stress. He may be drunk, as far as you know. If the building block of the cell itself that's communicating is damaged, the likelihood that it's going to arrive with the appropriate message is going to be all over the place, right? And so yet again, it's not only just what you eat or how much you eat, but what are you consuming and are we producing the results that we want? All right.
And are you eating them together? I just want to stop for a second because this is funny. You said he's overslept and understressed. Raise your hand. You want to be overslept and understressed? I want that. Yeah. I think you meant the other way, but that
vice versa, that one. But I mean, essentially, you guys, this is where, yet again, for you avid calorie count, if you've been a part of this group, you guys, if there's one thing I want to help, we all want you to understand is counting calories does not give you the information that you're searching for. Right. And so obviously, honestly, you can QA our last 8 week shift people and even the people going through the program right now. What we promote is not very complex. It's very, very simple. But what we're trying to do is promote a appropriate ratios between your carbs, your fats, and your proteins so you can take advantage of your hormones. Yep. All right, that's all we're trying to do is open the door. We know we're going to have stuff come in, but we want to promote the system to open the door to get the system functioning.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. Our bodies are really smart, you guys, but if we're giving it bad information, then it can't use it. So we're teaching you guys how do you balance your hormones so that your body works for you instead of against you. So
just to kind of clarify this a little bit, you guys. So a study published in the Journal of Hormone and Metabolic researchers and scientists from Laval University, hopefully I'm pronouncing it right, discovered, so they took subjects and had them eat a pie. Okay, so they had them eat two different meals. All right, they had them eat a pie that was obviously more processed, very high carbohydrate, and then eat a meal that contained steak or fish. All right. And then they measured essentially their blood sugar and their glucagon levels. Well, upon eating that, the subjects both saw a spike in their insulin levels and essentially their glucagon levels. But what they also saw is those that ate the pie, initially, right after they ate the pie, their glucagon levels actually dropped. That actually decreased. And those that ate a steak or fish, 30 minutes later, their glucagon levels actually increased significantly. So the two, yet again, they'd be the same caloric basis on there, but the the makeup of the food, one being more carbohydrate, more processed type of foods, the other having protein in it, saw an essential decrease in glucagon, the thing that opens the door for you to burn energy, and the other saw an increase 30 minutes after that meal of a higher glucagon count, which is opening the door for you to burn. All right. So count your calories till you're blue in your face. That's why you're probably frustrated why it won't work, is because nobody talks about this, right? And it's not your fault. It's not your fault because these things will get talked about. All right.
It's not super sexy.
No.
Brandon's making it fun, but hormones
Yes.
are not super sexy.
That's
but
why she married me.
yes, it was the hormone talk.
Yes.
But when you get them on your side, it
Regulating
really
hormones.
you know, that could be a big deal in the next few years of my life. All right, we're a little slap happy, you guys. Hopefully you're still with us.
So essentially, we got insulin, we got glucagon, and now the last one, you guys, is we have cortisol. Okay, now there's a bunch of other ones that go in the equation. We want to give you, a big three for today. All right, now cortisol, you guys. I think for a lot of mainstream people, we hear cortisol and associate, it's a bad thing, right? It deals with, cortisol affects a lot of functions in your body. It affects blood pressure, blood sugar, your sex hormones. Is that what you were talking about in the next couple of years?
Yes.
Blood sugar supports your thyroid function hormones. All right. It has to do a lot with essentially your HPA axis. That's part of your brain. And basically automatically interacts with your metabolic functions. All right. Now, what happens is, so oftentimes, I think cortisol gets associated with obviously stress, right? It gets associated with inflammation, right? And so what we see oftentimes, and this is why a lot of people, even though they're quote unquote doing everything right, and we've seen it time after time after time of, I'm eating this many calories, I'm eating this many macros, and you do the calculations and it comes out, well, yeah, that's what we would recommend. But then we start deep diving more into the side of like, okay, well, what's life look like for you right now? Well, how's your sleep? How's your life? How's your lifestyle, right? Like, how's your stress? Well, it's not bad, right? It's kind of normal. Okay, well, walk me through that. What's that look like? Well, normally I get about 3 hours of sleep. I got 14 kids, and they're all in AP classes, and I have to stay up with them all night long and go through all this process. And then I got a job promotion, and then I got a deadline due tomorrow. And you know what? I got to run Johnny to 14 different practices, but it's really not that bad.
And I'm going to the gym 3 times a day, and I'm counting my calories.
Yes, and I'm doing double days. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm signed up for my first Ironman next week. Right? And it's like, well, that's great. You're doing all the things on a nutritional basis, but your other lifestyle factors, you're in constant cortisol spike, right? And so when that happens, you guys, is essentially researchers have found that when your cortisol levels are spiked, it has basically you put yourself into fight or flight. Okay, and fight or flight is a mechanism that has been with us as the process of evolution of understanding, like, oh, there's a saber-toothed tiger, I should probably run and not be here, right, for my survival. Well, yet again, luckily we're no longer dealing with saber-toothed tigers, but we all have usually low-grade, constant elevation levels of stress, right, in some shape or some form. Oh, it's the bill in the mail. Oh, it's my deadline that has to be there. Oh, I woke up too late and now I got to rush to work. Oh, I don't have enough time, right? Like all the things we stack on top of ourselves. Well, when we have elevated levels of cortisol, it's been shown that also creates catabolic function inside of our system. So what that means is it's gluconeogenesis is the technical term for it, but it's essentially is your body breaking down muscle tissue for energy. Okay, so it's not utilizing sugars, it's not utilizing fats, it's not utilizing those things, it's utilizing your own muscle tissue for you to essentially process throughout your day. So again, if you're going to the gym, you're wanting to all these things, you're wanting to promote decreased body fat, you're trying to run, your first event, whatever that may be. Even if and this even happens, we've seen it with, okay, you might be doing everything right, but yet again, you might be dipping in too much intensity inside your training, right? Like even too much training can be detrimental and put you into a catabolic state. All right, so
the irony is, like, if you're
yes.
training hard, you're trying to gain muscle, but it puts you in a catabolic state where your body eats your own muscle, and then all of the things you're trying to do go out the window because your cortisol is not where it needs to be.
Yep. And so yet again, decrease muscle, decrease essentially fast burning metabolic tissue, decrease metabolic rate. Okay. Not only that, when it comes to cortisol and how it really affects, is it also cortisol been shown to actually interrupt the receptors in your thyroid function. Like, yet again, if your thyroid is the master regulating of your metabolism, and higher cortisol levels actually interrupts that signal, yet again, it's not interpreting the information correctly, and it's going to throw it awry, right? And that's why I would imagine, honestly, that's probably one of the things why April probably experienced that a lot, is because, for one, this is another big portion of what we teach in the 8-week program isn't just dietary practices, it's also being able to mitigate stress, mitigate and bring good mindfulness practice, be able to set yourself up and understand that you are the creator of your life and life isn't happening to you, right? It's minimizing these things. So yet again, we can take advantage of our hormonal responses. So you're getting 8 hours of pay and 4 hours of work. Right? So it essentially affects receptors. It affects whether those things turn on or turn off, right? Like, you have thyroid stimulating hormone, you have thyroid regulating hormone. Both those things are essentially like the gas pedal and the brake pedal. If cortisol levels are increased, that's going to essentially affect that. And, you heard me mention the HPA axis. So essentially, that's literally a portion of your brain that connects your external environment to your internal environment. And we've seen it a million times over with all our clients of, like, yet again, I'm doing all these things right. But if your external environment, your perception of stress, anxiety, heightened, whatever, I don't know about you, the last 2.5 years has not promoted that at all, right? We're in a high elevation. Yet again, my external environment is going to, my external environment, if I interpret stress, my internal environment is going to mimic that, and it's going to elevate these hormones and elevate all these irregular responses in the system. Okay, so those are the three we wanted to kind of cover today. Okay, is insulin is your store, glucagon is the door opener, cortisol is the regulator, and being able to see, okay, not only what am I eating, what am I doing, but how is this affecting the rest of the system?
Yep. So I would say the 3 takeaways, the simplicity of this, you're like, oh man, now what? Well, okay, I get what they do, but what do I do, right? So what we always tell our clients, eat protein and carbohydrates and fat together all the time, right? That is a very simple way to regulate what you're getting, right? So at every meal, protein, carbohydrate, and fat, okay? Start there and just start paying attention to what that means, right? And then for me on the cortisol side, it's figure out how to decrease your stress, right? Like, I'm all about breath work, meditation, mindfulness, being present. If you can do those kind of things, those 2 things in and of itself, if you did that and you did it consistently, would change your life, right?
Well, and I would say in addition to that is exercise can be a good thing. Obviously, exercise can be a good thing, but how many of you guys are using exercise as basically a form of punishment just to elicit weight loss or whatever, right? Like, it's not just a form of giving your body the sense of movement because we get to move and it's a privilege to be able to move, but we use it as a form of punishment, and more is better, and we just beat ourselves down, and we actually are causing probably more detrimental effects than actually promoting the good effects.
Yep, for sure, for sure. So we know there's a lot of questions about hormones. So we chatted yesterday. We're like, what is the best way to serve you guys and to really help you and to help you understand your hormones? So what we decided to do, so we have another program launching for the 8-week shift. It's going to start April 11th, okay? We're going to do a whole workshop for you guys in 2 weeks called Ditch the Diet, right? So if you're like, you know what, I think what you guys are saying is crazy, but I'd really like to ditch my diet. I'd like to stop counting my calories and understand my body. Make sure you show up to that workshop, okay? If you're in the group and you have friends that you know need to hear it, make sure they get in here. We'll post more about that. But we're going to create a bonus. So if you decide to join us for the next 8-week shift program, we're going to do a free masterclass. It's going to be a bonus for those of you that sign up, where we're going to spend an hour, hour and a half, right? We love to teach, really going over those hormones, how they affect you at different times in your life. If you're female, different times of the month. We're going to dive into all of that stuff so you guys can really understand it, so it doesn't seem like this mystery stuff that's going on inside of your body, okay? So if you've been listening to us or you missed the last one and you're like, man, I just saw that it launched and I missed it, we're bringing you another one April 11th, so you can get registered now. And if you get registered now, you know you can get that bonus, okay? But otherwise, we super appreciate you guys. If you watch the replay, drop hashtag replay. If you have more questions about this, post them here, hashtag questions, and tag us so that we make sure we actually see them. So we were 1 minute over of our 30 minutes.
Like
that
a record.
is pretty impressive.
We're
So
in a PR bell.
right? So we're here every week, you guys, at 11 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. It's going to be 30 minutes every week. We're going to post a topic. So make sure you pay attention to those topics. Make sure that you're here live. You're interacting with us. Again, we don't want to just talk to ourselves. We do that all day, every day. Well, when our kids are not home, then we get interrupted a million times. But show up here. We love you. We appreciate you. If you have friends that you think would get value from this, please do invite them to the group. We give tons of free content, and we're really here to help you guys stop dieting, get healthy, and be the happiest version of you. So we'll catch you guys next week.
Thanks, y'all.